G'day and welcome. In this little chapter we're going to be taking a look at a wheel, a boot lid, a bunch of parts. We're going to fit one or two of those parts to this engine, and we take a look at another old Dunger engine that I picked up for 249 bucks. Hope you enjoy. Right, 750 back wheel. We're in a bit of a pickle because I can't find that rim. 17 inch 40 spoke for CB750 K7 and K8. Guy I thought supplied them, or at least did supply them last year, doesn't get them anymore. Rusty in here, so I'm going to have to get that re-chromed. Get this bike mobile under this tarp. Because the Raymaker's workshop's been sold and there's a settlement date on it, which means the MG is going to have to come back here, and I've just got crap everywhere. That fan can go in the bin. Now, in the meantime, I have to get this rim off. I'm not going to go into it because I've done the lacing on the other videos. I've just got to find where the valve is, which is here, and take a little reminder video of how it all goes together. Strip that, get that down to the chromas, and then go to Scotty's to get it trued and the tyre put on. Alright, here we go. Got a strip, you can just see how bad it is. Last guy I spoke to said about $400 each, but by the time you get that done and get it trued with the tyre on everything, it's a $700 wheel. So, I don't know. I'll have to hunt around a bit, I think. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I don't mind if there's a bit of pitting in there because you don't see a lot of this. It's you just sort of see the sheen on it. You don't see the whole wheel in detail when it's in the bike. But trouble is the front looks beautiful because it's a new rim, same as the 350. Right, well, when you have some sort of mechanical aptitude, you find yourself doing all sorts of jobs. This is my mother's walker, and the bearings were flogged out. These are Timkins I bought. So the problem is these are the same width and the same OD, but the ID is 2 millimeters bigger than what was there before, and I can't get the same type, so I've just got to make up some sort of sleeve. Right. Hopefully that works a bit better. They don't wobble around anymore. So that's all good. Oh, I should be right. Right, so I've got all these parts from Dave Silver Spares, and this is great. Case bolts, I thought they were Allen ones. The only Allen ones around the top, and I didn't want those. So, typical of Honda, everything is in its own bag. These are all case bolts, which some of these I won't even need. But we have that other motor coming, and we'll use what we can on the overhead gear and just get the others on the valve cover. So that's all cool. Genuine Honda cam chain with the guides. That's a non-genuine one. And that was a very expensive one, so I've got a non-genuine on that. Front brake pads. That is the tensioner for the cam, so it's all the cam chain stuff done. Oil filter bolt. The lever. All our black bearings, and you know they're black because they have a little black mark on the edge of them. But there's 8 for the conrods there. We've got a primary drive chain, which is packed in a weird way, but anyway. And these 3 guys for the petcock. So your gasket, your O-ring, and your strainer for the bowl. And that is around about it. So what we need now, all we need to finish the bottom end, is the, what's the other thing? Main bearings. I haven't got those. And of course the other thing we've got is the seat lock as well. So that's cool. And I can actually get the bike coded to that key, or I might actually do that because I've got a spare then. But that is it for parts for now. Now I haven't ordered the main bearings because I need to, well I had to go and pick up the 750's rear rim, and that was $300. So we've got the oil pump rebuilt. We've got it all pretty much ready to go. I've just got to get those other ones and we should be good to go. Right, I want to put some bearings in. I've done these 2 here. And where's my other conrod? We've got these guys. I've marked them. This is number 2. That's forward. We don't really need to put the F there because the 2 tangs face forward anyhow. Now these rod bolts aren't like car ones in that they do come out. With car ones, if they come out, you've got to press new ones in and resize your rods, but on the bikes, or like this, you don't. The other thing is the conjecture with whether or not the rod bolts should be replaced on the bikes isn't so much the case on the single overhead cam ones. They're not stretched to yield. There's a hair, but on the twin overhead cam ones, on the later 750s and that sort of thing, they are. So I'm going to pop these bearings out, these old shells, you can see them there, and clean up the area where they sit. I'm going to change my gloves too because these are dirty. The other thing that's quite disconcerting about this is you need to almost put in the once you've done each one, you need to sort of pop the crank out, which is not difficult to do, and just put it somewhere safe and lie the new one in there. They're the old main bearings. I haven't got replacement ones of those yet, but I'm going to pop my gloves off. Here are your new ones. These are black, and this is what people are replacing all the other ones with. And they come as half shells, so I've ordered 8 of these, and you can see the difference there between them. So the tangs go together. There's a little tang hole, and I'll just pop that in. Oops. Locating the tang first and pressing the bearing down in there. That's good to go. Tangs face forward. This is number 2. So that is going to just sit there. I can't get it in from the other side. Then I'll get my little cranky, pop him back in. It goes like that. I'm watching where that thing is because I don't want it to mark anything up. And there we go. I'll put this other one on and we'll fit them up. These are black. They're signified by a bit of black ink. There's green, yellow, brown, there's all sorts of colours. Now what we need to do, I'm just going to pop that in there. Neither of the big ends has a hole in it. It's lubricated through the crank. Where is it? Number 2 here. Through that hole there. So I think now what we'll do is get some plastic gauge, which comes in a strip. And I'm just going to break a bit off and lie that across the journal. I'll move the camera up, that's probably better. You can see the plastic gauge just sitting there across the journal. Now, I'm just going to push that up. The bearing's dry. We don't want to nick anything. So I'm just going to pull him up into place like that. Tang to tang, they both face forward. That's the front of the engine, obviously. Great, I just dropped a rod bolt. I'll just hold that in place. Get the other rod bolt, feel the little things. Right, I'll put him on there. And I'm just going to tighten them up. Stick him on a torque wrench and go for broke. And just do it evenly. Then we can undo them and just pull him out and have a look. And we can see, where's my scale? There's some of it on the crank, there's some of it on the bearing, and we can see we're right on that white, which is, hang on, I'll do it on the imperial side. I'm more an imperial person. There you go. 1.5 thousandths. The spec is up to almost 2 thousandths, 0.0019, so 0015, so that's cool. The important thing with this though is to get that crap off there. You want to scrape it so the white metal's clean, and the same on the crankshaft. Pair of gloves. Got to support these rod bolts. A bit of assembly lube on both of them, and this stuff actually, that's the forward part there where the tangs go. I can get it down here, but the bolts want to come out. They're just falling out, which is a pain in the neck. So I'll deal with that in a moment. The 2 tangs facing forward, I can see that one there. I'm going to put my pinky under there to stop the rod bolt dropping out. Lower that guy on, and once I get one of these Bella's started. I should be good. They're just tedious. This thing, it's the smallest engine. It's tiny. They're little 86cc cylinders, I think, or something to that effect. They're minute. And of course we just do them up again and torque them down, and Bob's your uncle. It's all on. Another thing to check is the clearance in there between the crank and the big end. They're going to be fine because we haven't actually done anything. We've just replaced the bearing shells. But it's another thing. It's just good practice to do it. I've gone over these again with a torque wrench, so everything's cool. Now I need to order those bearings, the main bearings, before I can actually put everything back together. CB750, you'll know about that. Full resto bike, and still quite a bit to do on it to finish it. Here's the rear rim. I think I'll turn this around, let you have a bit of a sticky. I haven't got a sprocket for it yet. I had the rim re-chromed, and this was quite an expensive thing to do. I couldn't get a replacement. They make them for the earlier 750 Hondas with the 18-inch rim, but this is a 17 being a K8, and consequently the rim was pretty bad, and I've had it redone, and the guy's done a lovely job, although the chromer did annoy me. He charged $300 for that, which is what you pay, I suppose, but then kept banging on about how it should have been $600 and all this sort of other stuff. Just kept going on, and then I sort of, not an argument with him, but the XC's bumper, he originally quoted 800, then he goes, no, at least 1,000 because they're this big and they're that big, and he was sort of quoting over 12 inches high and being considerably bigger than XW and XY ones, and they're not. They're like 50 to 60 mil bigger, that's all. But anyway, he kept going on about how he's undercharging me, and I got a bit fed up and said thanks very much and left. So I'm going to find another guy, because although he's nice enough, I didn't really appreciate that. The tyre is a Metzeler Lasertec, not really period correct for the bike, but you can get the classic ones like I got on the 350. But again, they're only the 18-inch ones, so I was sort of at the mercy of whatever I could get for a 17 that was going to be nice and new and safe. So we got that, and I've got a couple of bits here. There's the rear hub. I've just painted that. I haven't polished it. So I've got all this other stuff to put on, indicator lenses. Gary sent me this one, and he was good enough to send it with the screws, and so I can put that on too. And of course all the rear axle bits and pieces. Being plated, I had to sort of wet sand, I suppose is the word for that, just to get it to fit, because it didn't fit before. And you know, the same with that with the seal runs, just to make sure it's all good. And you know, I've got all this other stuff to put on. Oddly enough, the rear brake pedal's smaller on this than it is on the 350. So there's all this other stuff, the brake actuator rod and all these sorts of bits I can put on. Then the bike's mobile, at least I can wheel it around, because at the moment it's sort of been stuck on its centre stand for about a year or so. Before that it was on its belly. As far as the XC is concerned, here's the Bootlid trunk. This is another example of things that annoy me, where they've used a grinder. This was I think the same car as the doors, but not the original one that came with the vehicle, if you know what I mean. And I was annoyed with the car because they used a grinding disc to get rid of paint in the engine bay. This clown's done the same thing, in that those radiuses are hexed, if you can see what I mean. They're sort of run across with the grinder and done this business, which is ridiculous. I don't know why they didn't use a chemical stripper. Not as great as I want, although rust-wise it's great. So we got dents in here, we've got raised bits there, you probably can't see it. There's a big friggin' high spot there, which I've got to get rid of. And even where that feels terrible there, there's something going on there. And also where they've punched in the holes for the badges. I've got to sort of hammer and dolly those out and get them straight as I can. And the forward badges, this is a pre-update, well, it's a pre-update car, but I'm just using a forward badge over there, and the Fairmont GXO one here. And I've got to also find, I don't know where to get one, the boot trim that goes across here, where you've got the black underneath. I've got this one here, the lower one, but I haven't got the one that goes there. The other thing on the XC, this is pretty much as you saw it. Last time we ran a video on this, we ran the car and it sounded really nice and all the rest of it. Door handles I always cursing about, they're rubbish, so I'm going to bodywork the original ones and do them black, because they're supposed to be black. This one didn't fit properly, and of course we'll get that boot lid done sooner than later. I've also got to paint the side, well, what do you call it, the interior trims, and the, what's it called, armrests as well, because when I get in here, just going to be careful not to open it, don't hit my motorbike. We've got to put the plastic behind here. We've got to wire. We've wired up the power windows, but I need to plug them into the looms. Put the plastic behind here, secure the door trims properly with the fitting kit, which I haven't got yet, and put the weather strips on. And then they can be buttoned up properly. Armrests on, power window switches there. We're good. It'll all be. The interior will be finished sooner than later. So this is something I'm very excited about. Right, so I've got to get this thing mobile. Don't have the brake linings for it yet. Just sort of put that in, lubricated it, cleaned it up. There's a little dot on there which lines up. Now it's got this indicator, it's a felt washer. It's got this indicator which lines up. These can be paid. I should have got a new one. There's a few things I do need to replace still on this bike, but I don't want to just over budget too much at the moment. So stick that on. Oh gosh. There we go. And of course on there is this dot which lines up with the dot on here, which is there, I think. I'm having trouble seeing it. Yep, there it is. And so that will line up with that dot there. There's actually a master spline in there. So it's going to stick that over there, squeeze them together, and that should be right. Right. Now, let's see how it fits in the wheel. Well, the light's pretty average, but picked up this really average looking CB354 engine. It's still on the bottom part of the frame. You can see that tube would have been for this rather lovely powder coated centre stand, but I don't think it's going to do it too much good. In fact, if I'd had this before, I would have welded them onto the frame of mine because it was cut. This thing's really messed up, but apparently runs well. And from the look of it, it was in a go-kart. So, not ready to pull it off now. We're running out of daylight. But I think it's worth having a bit of a look at. Just looks really, really messed up. But for the money, it's all pretty good. Now this was delivered from Wallaroo in South Australia by ego.com.au. They're the freight company. It took a long time to get here, and I was in communication with them because their tracking thing didn't work properly, but it did get here in one piece, which is good, and they were very reasonable. They were half the price of every other freight company. So I'll just grab a stand for the camera and have a bit of a look. So this thing is not pretty at all. Like, it's really not pretty. But it is what it is. But so far it doesn't look too bad. Actually, I thought it had a whole lot of busted pins on it. Let's keep unwrapping it. To be quite honest, it looks a lot better than I thought it would. I love the factory headers. Oh, well, so far it doesn't look too bad for 240 bucks. So she's a bit of a mess. We've got some busted pins here, and I can fix those, not worried about that. Engine's been painted before. Missing a points cover. And someone's done a bit of welding on their Kickstarter. Apparently they drained the oil. Let's have a look. Yes, they drained the oil. But it all looks pretty complete. Coils are strapped on the top. That's cool. We've got a fuel line arrangement here, which is, well, as you would expect. That's why I think this was on a go-kart. So, neutral. Oh, yeah. Well, it's got first First and second are neutral, which is good. Apparently the starter motor's fried. We'll take him up and have a look. And it's been a little bit bashed around, but I don't know, I'm kind of alright with it. I think what we'll do, we'll unbolt it from here, and I'll put casters under the original frame bit so I can wheel it around. But just in parts, you know, it's worth more than 240 bucks. But it's not as bad as I thought. What's it on here? Oh, that's your points wiring. And that will be your battery positive. Stick juice in the carbies, voltage in here, and we should have a runner. I do dig that exhaust though, I reckon that was good. There's something really cool about that. So it's a roughie. We've got this exhaust arrangement here with a, I hope that's a 6mm going into the head. You can put studs on it, we can fix, there's two of them there. Put studs in those two, we can fix those up. I can fix that head up. I can make something up for that out of another cylinder head that's buggered and just weld it in. I might have to cut that one back further, weld that, grind it back, then weld piece in here. I can do that. So all your studs are still here, that one's huge. So we're going to have to mess with it. You know, one thing I am curious about is the tensioner arrangement. Where's the tensioner again? Tensioner's there. And it looks like that's intact, although it looks like it's got a different bolt in it. But it looks like it's there, which is cool. I think the first thing to do is to get it going. Got some little pod filters for that, off the other thing I had. So I reckon this is going to be alright. I really do. I reckon for 240 bucks, you can't really go wrong. 249, sorry. One thing I don't believe is that it runs all that well because it sounds to me like it's spitting back this way, which is what one of the carbies was doing on the other one. So, yeah, I'm not believing it, but it's worth having a crack at. Anyway, yeah, that's focusing. I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up again until we're ready to play around with it. And this might be a candidate for a dirt cheap little cafe build or something. If anyone's got a 354 frame or rolling frame, that might be the way to go for this. 750 rear wheels on temporarily. I haven't got the brake liners in yet, but I wanted to make it so the thing could be wheeled around. Oops. So that's just sitting there. Got to get a sprocket for it. Sprocket and rear brake, chain sprockets and rear brake liners, and that can go on permanently. But for now, the bike sort of can be wheeled around. So still need to get an exhaust and a few other bits and pieces, but it is looking a heck of a lot better than it was. Alrighty, go forward. Check that this is tight. Yep, so I can put some oil in. Look how heavy this thing is. It's quite heavy. So this is, yeah, just what I took out of the other bike. So it's used, but it's only been used to start it. So it's not perfectly clean, but for this it's going to be fine. Starter motor apparently has had it. It doesn't look like it's got any insides. Looks like it's just a shell. Of course we got the obligatory wrong fastener. That's good. Not much in the way of starter motor stuff there. What about on the inside here? I don't even think it's got a starter. It hasn't even got anything in there. That's not good. I can't use that. Oh, can't use the electric start. Oh well, only got 2-stroke fuel, and we've got it going in. It's not leaking out so far, which is a good thing. Just connect some power up, I guess. I haven't looked at the wiring at all, but I'm tipping that's an earth because it's strapped on the top, and this one's for the coils. So I'll connect the battery up and kick it over. It's going to be weird though because the trajectory of this thing's a bit strange, so I might have to sort of stand in front of it and kick it back. We'll see how we go. Well, apparently the ad said this ran like a Swiss watch, so let's see if it runs like a Rolex or a Timex that's been on the bottom of the ocean for 20 years. Well, it's smoky, but that could be two-stroke. Oh well, that'll do for now. It's difficult to start because this thing's flopping around, and we've only got, I don't think we've got any action. Those two centre cylinders are cold, that's hot, and that's hot. So I only got 1 and 4 going, and seen Swiss watches running better. But it's not bad, it runs. That's the main thing. So it's not too bad. Look, we've got oil leak there. We've got the guts of the starter motor missing, but more of a worry than that is the fact that the starter gear inside the crankcase is missing. That's a bastard. But, you know, it might be up for rings or something. I'm pretty confident the two cylinders not firing in the middle is nothing all that major. I just need to get it on the rig where I can sort of get it going properly on the driveway, sliding around on that block of wood down there, so it was hardly satisfactory. But oddly enough, the carburetors don't leak. They don't do anything they shouldn't do. And just for that alone, it's sort of worth it, you know what I mean? So I think it's well worth some additional explorative surgery. Had it not been missing the gear inside the crankcase, I would have just put my starter on. It would have made life a lot easier. So, but it is what it is, you know. It's an old junker. Things like this, where it's been welded, it's no big deal. That hole, we can cut that off. That whole shaft just pulls out. You don't have to split the cases to get to it. So I'm not interested in doing any work like that. I'm just not. I'm more interested in just patching it up and, you know, making something out of it. But yeah, but, you know, a couple $100 is not too bad. So that's it for this one. Hope you've enjoyed it. Take good care of yourselves, enjoy classic, and I'll see you around.